Hello, hello. I am back with my round 7 game from the 2025 Grenke Open. For this round, going into it, I had 4.5 out of 6 points, and I was paired against the first Grandmaster I faced in the event, GM Vitaly Kunin, who represents Germany. So wasn't a lot of time to prep for this game. I just had a very brief look at the opponent's games and decided that I was going to go and play e4. And here my opponent, I think, spent a little bit of time and goes d6, although probably played it relatively quickly. d4, knight f6, knight c3, and e5. So the Philidor defense, which I wasn't so much expecting for this game, but I did have something in mind here. I go knight f3, knight d7, and rook to g1. So this line is pretty interesting against the Philidor. Of course, white has many other tries here as well, like bishop c4, I think is still the main line, but this is a really sharp and interesting move to try to just play g4, g5 super quickly, very much in the style of the Keres attack from the Sicilian. So here, black played c6, and at this point, I couldn't really remember my prep because I hadn't really, prepared this for the game. It's just a line I was aware of, and the main move is to play g4. But for whatever reason in my mind, I thought that I was supposed to play bishop e3 first, so I just kind of did that. And this isn't really a great move. For one, black can just play knight to g4, and already actually can maybe take over the initiative here because the bishop doesn't have a great square. If I go back bishop c1, obviously black can repeat, and white doesn't want that, but black can also continue with a move like queen b6 to be kind of annoying. And yeah, already I think black is equalizing here and has pressure against white center. We can't take, obviously, because of queen takes f2. So my opponent could have gone knight to g4, but I think he was a little bit confused by my move order and decides to just go bishop e7. And here I play g4. And we kind of transpose back into typical lines here as if white had just played g4 first, which I definitely should have done. g4, then maybe black plays h6, bishop e3, bishop e7, and we would transpose to the game. So I start with this one. Bishop e7, g4. Bit of an opening bluff, but it wasn't called. Bishop e7, g4, h6. And here I started spending more time, and I ended up going bishop e2. And I wasn't sure how to play this position, whether I should advance with g5 first or build up queen d2, bishop e2. I think white has a lot of moves here. I checked the theory, and there are some games where white plays a4, games where white plays a3 is also possible, just kind of a useful move on the queen side, defending against black's b5, b4 push in many cases. Definitely one for the opening theoreticians to figure out. I went here. Now came queen a5. And so black, of course, wants to take the pawn on e4. And if I play queen d2, then that weakens my defense over g4. So then black can go ed4, for example, and knight e5, and the g-pawn is hit. Maybe this is playable. I'm not really sure. But I also was a little bit concerned about b5, threatening to play b4. And now I don't have this move a3 because my rook on a1 is undefended. So black just goes b4 anyway, which would not be possible if my queen was back on d1. So I think in view of b5, I decided to go knight d2, which is a typical reaction to queen a5 because white wants to hit the queen with knight c4, knight b3 tempo. And now with b5, I'll just go a3, and b4 really isn't a threat because I can throw a knight c4, knight b3, or just take the pawn, and black isn't achieving much. So here black decides to take on d4. And I paused here once again because in addition to bishop d4, I also have options like knight c4, knight b3. And knight b3 I thought would be the way to go, try to take on d4 with the knight, but then queen b6 was what I was thinking. I can't take on d4 because if queen takes b2, and there's no way to punish black's queen here. So I'd probably go bishop takes d4, but then knight c5. And yeah, this position kind of puzzled me, and I wasn't sure exactly what to do because the center is kind of open, so white's g4 push is starting to make less and less sense. And okay, I do have this pin on the knight, but there's not much I can do with it. And black's next move is just queen to c7, where slowly they're going to untangle, start putting pressure on e4. And this didn't really seem clear to me at all. I think the engine gives white a small edge with like queen d2, but then queen c7. And yeah, it's not really clear how white should proceed here. If I take on c5, black recaptures, and I think black is okay in this position. So yeah, after a bit of a thought, I played bishop takes d4, just recapturing the pawn. Probably could have made this move faster, but yeah, I was trying to be precise here. b5, a3, and now g5. And this move definitely surprised me when my opponent played it, because he also played it like relatively fast. At this point, only spent like 18 minutes total. But of course, once he made it, then I understood, okay, it's actually a very sensible move, and we see this idea in the Sicilian quite a bit. Other openings as well, like Benoni, where black goes g5 and fixes the e5 square, because now I don't have f4. And yeah, pretty annoying idea, but okay, I decided, I wasn't going to be intimidated, and I start fighting back. So I go bishop e3. Maybe I should have played h4 first. That would have been sharper. Bishop e3, knight e5, and now I go h4. So my idea, of course, is I want to provoke black into taking, because then I'll push f4 and kick the knight off of e5. But h4, black doesn't have to react. He goes queen c7. And now his idea is that if I take twice, he wants to take on g4. And I saw this trick pretty quickly, because I used the same trick in the last round of Reykjavik as black, where the knight on g4 is untouchable because black has rook h1 check and winning. So after queen c7, kind of a nice move, just getting out of the way of knight b3, knight d4, which I wanted to do. Knight b3 tempo, knight d4, and then knight f5. So I go knight b3 myself, again looking for knight d4 and trying to use the f5 square. But now g takes h4. Black surprised me again by taking this pawn. I thought this was very risky strategically, but at the same time, he is creating counterplay with the h-pawn. That is going to be kind of a nuisance to my pieces. So here I thought for a bit again, and I go f4. Maybe this was too aggressive. Maybe I should have played f3, just to secure the g4 pawn and make sure my rook can always go to h1. I think this would be okay for white, but okay, what I did was a lot more ambitious. So f4, knight c4, and yeah, I considered a lot of moves here. Like I was thinking about bishop d4, knight takes b2, queen c1, this kind of pawn sacrifice, where after knight to c4, the idea would be to follow up g5 and try to win a piece. But then I realized, well, I can take, and go rook g8. And I realized even though I'm winning a piece here, I'm giving up way too much for it. So rook takes g1, bishop takes f6. And now black has multiple pawns for the piece, 3 pawns already. The h-pawn, of course, is very strong. The knight on c3 is hanging, and black has ideas of d5 and bringing in the queen. So this looked like black actually has fantastic compensation, and indeed I think black is maybe even close to winning here. At least it's not even obvious how to defend the knight. So rather than go for bishop d4, I decided to take and go knight d4. And now my idea is I want to plant the knight on f5 and kind of fight against black's light squared bishop. And I wasn't really sure what's going on here. Actually, I was kind of skeptical of my position because it just looked a bit loose, like black has a lot of targets here. But at the same time, black's pieces aren't very active, like queen c7, bishop e7, they're kind of passive as well. So concretely, yeah, I wasn't really sure what's happening. So here black spent actually a bit of time, 22 minutes, and goes h5. Which I think was a mistake because I take on h5 and now I get a bit of counterplay. And I'm not sure exactly what he didn't like on h3. I think my plan was to play knight f5. But yeah, it's kind of shaky for white. Black is like h5 here they could try. And of course the h-pawn is pretty annoying. So I wasn't sure what's going on here, but I didn't have a lot of time to really delve into it because my moves I felt like were had to come. So h5 played, I take, and now if rook takes h5, I have this funny idea to go rook g8 check. Where on knight takes g8, I'm taking the rook on h5, and my queen is very active, and black's pawn is kind of stuck. I'll castle, queenside next, and I think white is doing pretty well, because the h-pawn here is kind of hard to push. Maybe even I go f5 somewhere, and black's king isn't obvious how to get to safety. So takes, h3 is played. Now I go queen e2, just covering the h2 square. And again, if rook takes h5, I can go rook g8 check immediately, or castle first, and then meet h2 with a rook g8. where let's say black blocks, I'll go rook h1. And I think white is doing really well once again, because I'm probably going to pick up the pawn. And yeah, black's pieces aren't very well coordinated here. So queen e2, here comes rook to b8. And now this is a really tricky moment, because of course I had wanted to castle queenside, but on rook b8 things are not so obvious. If I castle queenside now, black can play queen to b7, hitting b2. And there are many cases where I can just give the b pawn and go king d2. This is like a typical idea. But right now black is threatening to take on b2 and even take on c3. So for example, if I make some move here, let's say, f5, just kind of useful move. Black is threatening to take and then take this one with some nice tactics. King takes c3, knight takes c4, check. I have to take, and then bishop a6 is winning the game. I don't think I'm made it immediately after knight b5, but black is taking and then winning the queen back with 2 extra pieces and completely winning position. So that would be a big threat, and yeah, I wasn't sure exactly how to deal with it. So castles queen to b7. I don't want to play b3, that's way too weakening, and I wasn't sure what other move I can make. Engine finds knight takes c6, where it says, okay, after queen b2, king d2, black has nothing here because queen c3, king c3, and then knight e4, king d4. The king has a square. And otherwise, white is threatening the rook. White is also threatening a rook to b1. And apparently white is doing well here. But of course on knight takes c6, well, I can also just like take the knight. And so Compy gives bishop d4 and says white is better because somehow I'm going to win the piece back with e5. There's h6 ideas, knight d5 ideas as well. So this was pretty much too strong for me. Like I don't think I considered this in the game at all. I'm not sure if my opponent did either. I would be really surprised if he did. But yeah, so to me, this line just kind of felt somewhat alien. Maybe what I should have done was play this move e5. e5 was maybe findable. Because on e5, of course, I'm making a lot of threats. If black takes twice, I have knight takes c6. And white picks up the exchange, so I think white is okay here. But otherwise, after e5, I think black would have to take, maybe go knight d5. Let's say we take, pawn takes. And yeah, I think the engine was saying that this is also okay for white, but this position super complicated as well. Maybe I castle. I'm not really sure. There's queen takes e5 because knight c6. There's queen takes b2. Yeah, I don't know if I castle here or maybe I just play a move like h6 and play with the king in the center. I think this is probably more likely. And yeah, very sharp position because white wants to like even play like h7 and play with the h-pawn. Black also has the h-pawn. It's rare, both sides have a passed h-pawn. Here, queen e5, I think is getting dealt with knight c6. There's bishop h4 check in the position. So still it's like very, very sharp here. And in fact, like, yeah, I don't think white really has an easy solution. Which means that this whole thing for white, like once black took on h4, I think was just kind of in black's favor because white's position becomes very, very hard to play. So after rook b8, I go f5, giving the b pawn. Rook takes b2. My idea was to castle now with tempo. Rook drops back, and here I go h6. And so basically my point was I just wanted to give the pawn and kind of like maximize my pieces. So I go f5 here to shut down the bishop. I go h6 as well. Because now I have ideas of using the h-pawn somewhere, like with rook to g7, doubling, and so on. I also want like rook to g7, queen takes c4, hitting f7. But of course, my king on c1 is also weak. So I was mainly expecting queen a5 here. And yeah, I wasn't sure what's going on. Queen takes c4, queen takes a3 check, king d2. If rook b4, f queen takes c6 check. So I thought white is at least okay here. But yeah, king is in the center, both kings in the center, total mess. White wants rook to g7. Yeah, it was hard to say what's going on here. But instead came d5, which was not a pleasant move to see because all of a sudden black opens up the bishop onto the a3 pawn. And yeah, my king feels like a bit of a sitting duck now on c1. So at this point I have 16 minutes and there's no second time control. Opponent has 17 minutes. Basically I have to play a tempo here. So I take on d5, just not seeing really another move. Black takes with the knight. If the immediate bishop takes a3 check, king to d2, and then black has to be careful about some discovered attack. So this definitely isn't so easy. So he just recaptures right away. I take, pawn takes, and I go bishop g5. And at this point, I'm having a really hard time evaluating the position. Basically, I don't really have enough time to fully figure out what's going on. I'm not sure if it's good for me, bad for me. I'm just trying to make, whatever moves I can see that keep the balance. But yeah, it's really double-edged because we both have our passed pawns, our kings are both weak. Yeah, here starts to get very difficult. Queen b6, strong move, threatening to go queen b2 check, forcing king d2, and then queen takes d4. So winning the knight with check and the game. And yeah, I was not sure what to do here. I end up going queen e3, because what else? I defend the knight, and on queen b2, I still have king d2. And I think I was expecting f6 here mostly to just kind of deal with the pin. I drop back bishop f4, and game continues. I'm not sure how black should proceed here. But instead came h2. Very annoying move, hitting the rook, because I have three options. I can either block the pawn, go to e1 to reinforce the pin, or try to stay on the g file to keep the bishop defended, but all three of them seem to have problems. So rook to g2, for example, minimum I thought black can give check, promote, or give check on b1, but promote first, take, and then give check, and take on h1, and looks like I lose the game. And if rook e1, what I didn't like here is that now black can play f6. And let's say bishop f4, even king f7. So black is able to unpin, and now there's no rook to g7 check like there would have been without h2 and rook e1 included. And so here I think this is quite nice for black. Like I can take on h2, but yeah, now black's attack starts to look very strong, like queen b2 check, king moves, and then maybe bishop c5 here, maybe taking on a3, and yeah, white's position does not look good at all. I can't really run because of rook e8 and so on. So h2, I end up going rook h1, but now black finds very nice move c3. And so I can't take this pawn because my bishop on g5 is hanging. And this is a move that wouldn't exist if my rook was on e1 or on g2, because then I could take on c3. The bishop on g5 would still be defended. But with the rook on h1, now c3 is working. And of course, if I had moved my rook elsewhere, well then black would have done something else. So this h2 move was a real killer. So it just forces white's rook off of its best square g1, and now c3 is a huge problem because black is threatening mate. I can't take the pawn because the bishop is hanging. So I went knight to b3, just not seeing another move. But now black trades. I have to take with the bishop. And now black's bishop on e7 isn't pinned, which means black gets to take on a3 with check, king b1, and takes on f5. And the smoke is cleared, and now I'm down 3 pawns. And black is threatening rook takes b3, winning a piece. If I play king a2, there's bishop takes c2, winning some material here as well. So there's no rook d5 because the bishop takes b3 check. So yeah, at this point I realized I'm basically just busted, so I didn't know what to do. I went rook takes d5, rook takes b3, king a2. So I think I'm actually getting my piece back, but the position is still basically lost. Black went bishop e6, rook d3. Surprisingly, black doesn't have a killer discovered attack with the rook because the bishop on a3 is hanging, but black doesn't really need it. Rook b2 check, king takes a3, and now a5. And yeah, basically losing endgame for white. I'm down 2 pawns, but my king is weak, and yeah, black is about to take on c2. So rook a2 mate is threatened. I played king a4, only move, and now just rook takes c2. And black is up, back to being 3 pawns up. c3 is defended, h2 is defended. And all black needs to do is just kind of get the rook into the game. Black can still castle, put the king on h7, just block my h-pawn. And yeah, it's just technically winning position. So I went bishop g5, threatening mate, but now castles. I go back. I mean, there's really nothing to suggest for white. If black can put the king on h7, then the king is going to be extremely safe. I went here, check, check. Now king a4 back. There's rook b4 check, winning the bishop. So king c5. Other rook comes in, rook b4 check, and c2. I mean, I was basically ready to resign here after rook takes f4. King takes f4, c2. This is just hopeless. Black is about to win a full rook. So rook c1 can just promote this one. I take and then promote, and black is up a piece and should win comfortably. But there's nothing wrong with the immediate c2. Just threatening to win without sacrificing the exchange. I threw in this check. I took this pawn, but the checks quickly run out. King f5. And yeah, here I resigned because, okay, I have one more check, rook g5, check, king f6, but then all the checks run out, and black is just making a new queen. So yeah, tough game. You know, I thought it was very, very sharp struggle. I felt like maybe I had some chances somewhere, but it was tough. It was tough around this moment. You know, I really had to kind of like play like an engine to make this work for white, which just means to me that I think practically the position was already quite difficult. But yeah, that's what happens. You know, you go into a sharp opening against a strong player. You're not really up to speed on all the details. It's easy to kind of get confused and get a tough position from the get-go. So yeah, this part, you know, I could have played better. I think if I had started with h4 here, for example. Also, I think my move a3, the engine did not think this was the best move. It actually suggested this line that I didn't share, h4. So maybe this would have been the way to get some advantage out of the opening for white, with the idea being that b4 can be met with g5. Takes. Queen drops back. I take this one. And white is doing well because g7 is hanging. So bishop takes f6. I'm trading, taking on g7, and I've picked up a pawn. But okay, h4, it's not so easy. Black doesn't have to go b4. Black can also go g5 here. And yeah, we get this funky g5 structure, which, yeah, I think white has a better version here compared to the game, but still, this would be super complicated. But yeah, unfortunate loss, but felt like, well, I at least went for it. And yeah, I think my opponent played really well. Like, he found a lot of nice tactics and important moves to kind of play his position, which admittedly I think looked kind of difficult, but yeah, he managed to make it work just playing around this e5 square and with the queenside and kingside counterplay, using the queenside threats and the h-pawn. Yeah, I thought he handled it quite well. So after this game, I was on 4.5 out of 7 with 2 rounds left to play. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next videos.